don't stop. Just push through and you don't stop. Broken and bruised, you don't stop. Coughing up fluid, you don't stop. Alright, fresh from the mines that brought you King Midas. Sign of the times, call me Homo detritus. Karma's a beast and its fleas make a plague look childish. Are we home of the brave or the best or the brightest? None of the above, and my answer's as final as one wrong look at one of Brooklyn's finest. Now Barack was a real class act, better walk to The Hague so stylish, where he can perch on a warlord's throne, made a little known Middle East drone violence. Buddy, they were logging mileage while you and your smartphone were both on silent. Too busy hailing Barack as a well-spoken token that prejudice was dead and America had woken up when all along our bigotry was thriving in a rising red vitriolic tide so thick that it...
If you thought you saw your freedom, it was truly a mirage. Freedom's locked a cell away from Julian Assange. Our First Amendment rights are by his side behind bars, and the next voices silenced will be ours. Rest assured, democracy is rotting in the dark. Rest assured, we vilified dissenters, pushed out black renters, and tore down their housing just to build a little urban park. God, I tell you, old America really knows how to leave its mark. Blaze a trail, leave 100 scars. Rip your free speech out your throat, demonize the man who told you it was so, and leave him freezing in a cell in Belmarsh, perpetually awaiting extradition, thrown to the wolves of claustrophobia and malnutrition. And all that we can hope is that we catch Uncle Joe in a fleeting lucid moment of his flickering senile fascist mission. That maybe we could trick him into thinking Julian is just some sweet blonde middle school Christian, and she got mixed up with a few bad apples, slapped with some charges, and thrown into prison. Joe would set him free without a moment's hesitation under one condition: that he can sniff her hair before she goes back to school and he goes back to business. But if Joe's just had his shots, then we haven't got a chance of getting past his black and white vision, getting past his gut reaction to appease all of his donors' sick requests and shape policy and law around corporate mandated decisions. So really, all along, I think Julian was one man standing in a tempest with the fearlessness of true conviction. And if his is the only conviction we see after he shed a light on this country's most poisonous schemes all come to fruition, and we all collectively stare at the ground because we felt like our hands were too tied beyond signing petitions, while he's tortured to death for attempting to warn and enlighten admittedly not quite the brightest of citizens, and half of this country just won't take the time to uncover the truth, or they just don't mind, so they're quick to dismiss it and say it's a difficult position. Then we're back to the comfort of centrist delusion. We're right back to sleep for those ignorant sheep who resisted themselves into one protracted contusion, twisting themselves into knots to correct all your stimulus check-based confusion, wrapping their necks around their backs as they justify overflow migrant detention or fracking pollution. Then Kamala laughs, and the camera pans down to her shoes. And that footage is 90% of your 6 o'clock news. Except for a feel-good story about a man who at 95 years young just made Employee of the Month at Whole Foods. And the $50 gift card means this month he'll afford his prescriptions and meals, and he won't have to choose. This is the machine that a man named Julian Assange threw his body on the gears of for you. So to cry out for his freedom is the least that we can do. Now best believe the feds will serve to muddy up the truth, but rest assured the temperature in Belmarsh is an icy 22, and Julian is shivering in a solitary room without a view. Rest assured Obama loves a whistleblower just about as much as he loves weddings where he doesn't get to detonate the groom. Rest assured Obama bought the plot where all our First Amendment rights are gonna rot and demanded that they carve his smiling likeness on the tomb. So that when you come to pay respects to your free speech rights and a somber feeling hits you and you look up to the sky, the answer will be staring you right in the eyes to the questions of why and of who. So if you thought you saw your freedom, then they wanted you to. Human rights are mutable, and Julian is proof. Our First Amendment rights are stuck in solitary too. And the next voice silent might be you.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry. My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So I try to sit down with my wife and watch TV, but I just see propaganda elevating the police in the simplest of sitcom banter, and tiny little altars full of offerings to corporate masters in every well-planned wide pan shot of the name brand stocking up the pantry. Pull back one long tracking shot out to the garage to the logo on the Camry. Nice tight shot of the Camry. Close-up view of the Camry, slow pan up on the Camry, long slow zoom to the unmoving human who is up in the front with the tube pumping fumes to him straight from the back of the Camry. Ashamed he just could not provide for himself, let alone for his family. It's a blue pill mindset that spent 2020 making dance beats.
IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Indie Left News.
Independent Left News.
Oh yeah, and I get news from Independent Left.
Thank you, Independent Left.news.
They actually put up posts of different shows, different things going on.
Check out Indie Left. They're doing a lot of good things. They're on Twitter and Instagram, and they've helped promote our show a lot.
Thanks for the work you do behind the scenes, too. This man does our Discord and some other help, so I just love to shout him out. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah. They kind of really do a great job of pushing.
Thank you, Independent Left, for reminding me of that.
Check out IndependentLeft.news.
IndieLeft.news.
Indie Left, shout out.
Yes, we are live a little bit. Hi, everybody. It is Sunday night. It's 10 o'clock. It's Indie. It is How Did We Miss That? But we're going to have a special episode tonight. I wanted to pay attention and spotlight the most famous father there is in the world, and he's suffering, and he is sitting in Belmarsh right now. And we've been covering Julian Assange case and all of the different angles and amazing writers that have been spotlighting his case and keeping it alive and explaining why it's such a persecution. And again, on Father's Day, I as a father myself, I wanted to honor him and to show all the clips and the different segments that Reef and I have done over the 38 previous episodes of How Do We Miss That? So this is going to be a fun stream where you guys get to go back and watch some stuff that happened before, sometimes even before INN started, and this is early on, a little bit of pre-production stuff, and you'll see a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer stuff these days, but we're gonna run that right now, and again, enjoy, everybody. Have a great one. Love you.
But Ray McGovern,
how he specifically was targeted.
Ray McGovern nailed and talks specifically about the Isikoff story, and of course, the Isikoff story that broke talked about how the Trump administration and Mike Pompeo had conspired potentially and plotted and drawn up plans to either extradite him, kidnap him, have some type of a potential shootout on a London street. There were all kinds of wild scenarios that were thrown out because that's what the CIA does when they're briefing a president, of course, when they're giving him scenarios. There's questions as to whether this was brought by Pompeo or by Trump himself. Lots of people seem to believe this was a vendetta that Pompeo had over Vault 7. And that's one of the things that Ray McGovern had pointed out just the day after this whole thing broke and before everybody really had time to analyze and talk to anybody. He says, Michael Isikoff is at it again, this time with co-authors Zach Dorfan and Sean Naylor. in a long potholed piece posted on Sunday on Yahoo, where Isikoff is chief investigative correspondent. Seeing the title, wouldn't you dip in?
Yep.
Kidnapping, assassination, and a London shootout inside the CIA's secret war plans against WikiLeaks. Yeah, Pompeo's scary. You would know, Darlene. You live in his state, or right nearby. She's in Missouri. He's in Kansas, I believe. I sent out a quick tweet to alert those there's many readers who are malnourished by the corporate media to the subliminal but clear subtext. The big lie that Assange was a Russian agent, which he clearly was not. After all, he published DNC emails hacked by the Russians, quote unquote, to hurt candidate Clinton and throw the 2016 election to Trump, right? Hacked. Wrong. Okay. The Yahoo email, this is so good. The Yahoo article has a wealth of shoot 'em up detail, the most plausible of which were long since revealed. This is where Max Blumenthal, even a year plus ago, this came out in the UC Global trial with David Morales. What really happened? But sense is, even if only those wimpish lawyers had not stood in the way, we'd have gotten our man. Shoot up any Russians trying to steal him and bring him to Russia? No problem. First Amendment for Assange? No problem. So we are told, for example, the CIA and White House began preparing for a number of scenarios to foil Assange's Russian departure plans, according to 3 former officials. They have no evidence for this. Those included potential gun battles with Kremlin. Yeah, this is what we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Isikoff et al. So this is quoting the article more. Okay, and there was zero debate on the issue of whether the CIA would increase its spying on WikiLeaks, said a former intelligence official, right? So no stake in Russiagate vampire. So
well,
good.
And Megyn Kelly asked Pompeo about this today. Or not today, but like this week, I think.
Yep.
Because I know I pulled that story for our show. And I called into Glenn Beck.
Oh yeah.
As well.
Yep. Oh, he had the most uncomfortable giggle. Like, yeah, of course we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think there was the quote with Megyn Kelly was that they were a anti-national something like
a non-state hostile intelligence service, I believe was the terminology that was used to describe them. Or a non-state actor as well. That's another way to describe it.
Yeah.
So Ray McGovern, he was a 27-year career CIA analyst, including serving as chief of foreign policy branch, chief of the Soviet foreign policy branch. Brilliant. Yep. Vault 7. Exactly, Valerie.
Yeah.
That is.
But Russia.
Russia.
The
embarrassment of the Vault 7 leaks is why the CIA is determined to ensure that. Unfortunately, they have to get him out. He's got to be released. I mean, story after story after story highlights the persecution that this man is being underwrought right now. The torture that he's already.
I told Misty we should just. I told Misty we should just start sending cakes. You know.
Right.
One might get through with something, you know. Like at this point, the cowboy breakout posse needs to, it's ridiculous.
It is beyond ridiculous and really upsetting.
What are they holding him for?
What are they? Well, he's already won his extradition trial, and they've already said that they're not going to extradite him, but they're still holding him, which is still really weird, because he's a flight risk, and he fled to the Ecuadorian embassy prior. But okay, I don't want to try that whole part of the case. But the other angle that I wanted to show, and the other article that I thought brought a different a spin to the story and a different flair was from Kevin Gostola from The Dissenter, another amazing writer. He was on the ground in England a couple of years ago, or in February before COVID, for the last trial. He was on the Zoom feed for the last two, for the extradition trial itself in September, and the appeal that happened in July. And he's been one of the most tenacious writers, and he also covers prison malfeasance. He covers all kinds of corporate wrongdoing. Big fan of his work. The Dissenter is one of his newsletters. He's also one of the co-founders of Shadowproof. And so his article from September 29th was the report on the CIA plans to kidnap to Assange shows that the clearest evidence yet of improper pressure on prosecutors, right? That the district judge who denied the extradition request previously dismissed evidence of improper pressure from the CIA to charge the WikiLeaks founder. This is, again, an unbelievable story. Here. Though she ruled against the U.S.'s extradition request, she rejected the argument from the legal team for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange that hostility within U.S. intelligence agencies translated into improper pressure on federal prosecutors to bring charges. However, the Isikoff story on the CIA's plans, right, is some of the strongest evidence yet that he was only charged with crimes because of their thirst for vengeance. He was charged with by the U.S. Justice.
If they had killed him, I mean, if they had killed him while he was being like, isn't that not like witness? What do they call that? You know, where it's like tampering with witnesses or whatever.
Well,
you know,
that would just be worse than that. That, again, what they're trying to do is send a message to anybody that wants to report on the crimes of the national security state, of the CIA, of the United States, of the U.S. military, the U.S. government. So the charges criminalize the act of merely receiving classified information, as well as publication of the state secrets from the U.S. government. Targets common practices in journalism, which is why the case is widely opposed by press freedom organizations throughout the world. And there's been letters. Okay, again, here's more about Vault 7. All right, and Gina Haspel shared his zeal for retaliation. Right, he sought revenge after the publication. Pompeo proposed kidnapping Assange in the summer of 2017. His obsession led several CIA officials to draw up plans for assassinating the publisher. Right, some national security. This is really more of what the Isikoff story should have been, but he's taking the parts of the Isikoff story that are actually real, not mixed in with the Russiagate stuff. Now, the other question is if the Russiagate stuff's in there, how much do you take this? But again, Pompeo didn't deny that he set this up.
Yeah.
Representatives of the Assange legal team were asked to comment, but declined. They don't want to impact this case. If anybody has the wherewithal to support Kevin Gostola's work, please do. At both the Dissenter newsletter, of which I am a subscriber, as well as at Shadowproof. Again, this is another long one. And this gives a real breakdown of the Isikoff story, and again, CIA is a disgrace. The fact that it contemplated and engaged in so many illegal acts against WikiLeaks, its associates, and even other award-winning journalists is an outright scandal. And again, this is what Freedom of the Press Foundation executive director said. And that's what you were that's, I believe, the organization that Glenn Greenwald founded, Freedom of the Press Foundation.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where we're talking about how it dovetailed into Glenn.
Yeah, how Greenwald got personally,
Right. That Greenwald and Laura Poitras were also
to leave the country, and that he couldn't get back into the country by what his lawyers recommended not. You know, so
Yep.
super fun for them.
Free this man, please free this man.
But yeah, this Assange thing, yeah, just like, how many times do we have to, like, why do we have to beg for this? You know, I don't get it.
God, get that guy off my face. Get the guy off my screen. Again, the
Yeah.
Dissenter newsletter. I get a couple a week, I would say, from Kevin. Recent posts. Here's a couple of other ones. Report on the CIA plans. Shows that, okay, that's the one we just looked through. Here, he was reportedly obsessed with killing Assange. That's another article that he wrote for the Dissenter. This is 9/11 Cinema. And all about Daniel Hale. These are more in-depth. And again, he's got tons of different articles at the Dissenter. Also, again, recommend. This is a separate newsletter, I guess, from Shadowproof, which is the other organization that he is the co-founder of with Brian Sonnenstein.
Right.
Publication is the LA Progressive newsletter. And I picked up this article because probably of the name Julian Assange. Why is the CIA plot to kidnap or kill Julian Assange routinely ignored?
I wonder. Let's read further.
So,
which, by the way, send your files to, like, what's that address in Scotland? Like, just send them all there.
WikiLeaks. Right. So 3 years ago on October 2nd, 2018, team of Saudi officials murdered Jamal Khashoggi, rest in peace, in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. We know about this. The purpose of the killing was to silence him and to frighten critics of the regime by showing that it would pursue and punish them as though they were agents of a foreign power. Mockingbird. Yeah. Operation Mockingbird. How about that? It was revealed this week that a year before the Khashoggi killing in 2017, CIA had plotted to kidnap or assassinate Julian Assange, which we know who had taken refuge 5 years earlier in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Senior U.S. counterintelligence officials said that plans for the forcible rendition of Assange to the U.S. were discussed at the highest levels of the Trump administration. The informant was one of more than 30 U.S. officials, 8 of whom confirmed details of the abduction proposal, quoted in that Michael Isikoff piece in Yahoo News, that also tried to Russiagate and tie to Russia, which was wrong. But plan was to break into the embassy, drag Assange out, and bring him to where we want, except that really wasn't the case either, because now we know, thanks to Max Blumenthal and thanks to the UC Global case, all about what David Morales was doing, and that UC Global was in charge of security in the Ecuadorian embassy, that they planted cameras on behalf of the CIA all over the place, and that they were going to handle any rendition and extradition that would have happened during that time. But they got exposed, and they were brought up on charges because they were brought in on this. And again, watch Max Blumenthal's stream. It's on Rockfin. He has a show on Rockfin called Foreign Agents. You have to be a premium subscriber. I think he does eventually put it on the Moderate Rebels or on the Gray Zone channel.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Cenk and Anna, yeah. Apparently, Cenk and Anna are concerned that they think that Indie Left is a major power in this space and is a threat and is funded by Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kalinske and Joe Rogan, which is hilarious because none of them would even talk to me. And
I'd love to. Joe, hit me up.
Seriously, like
for a couple hours.
Like Jimmy, love you, brother. But I'm good. Like
yep.
we're self-funded right now, and that's happy to do that.
I mean,
user funded.
I still gotta cash those checks from Putin. So, we're it takes a minute. So,
Right. So again, getting back to our story about Mr. Assange. God, free that man. Free Julian Assange. Please free Julian Assange. We've got to let that.
Sure.
I mean, especially after what we see here, that the CIA actively was plotting to drag him out of an embassy where he had political asylum. All the stuff that they pulled. The fact that this continues. It's beyond disgraceful that we continue to pursue this, that our country continues to pursue this case. It's a persecution. Just to essentially, and Ray McGovern said it was essentially to move him from place to place to place, prison to prison, and never let him out for life. Free Julian Assange, please. Please, almighty, free Julian Assange.
Stop making us fucking beg before we start breaking kneecaps, please.
It's unreal.
Jeez.
Apologists for the CIA say it was freedom. It was freedom of the press was not under threat because they're not real journalists. Except that information. No, they're publishers. Okay, but they also were looking at real journalists. So what do you mean? So there's Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras. Okay, and
award-winning Glenn Greenwald.
Right, and they were similar to those employed by the Chinese government for suppressing dissident in Hong Kong, which has been much criticized.
Yep.
Okay. Again, the extraordinary story exposed by Yahoo News, but the journalist who wrote it. It's possible to only give a brief pieces. Okay, their disclosure should be of particular interest in Britain because it was in the streets of central London. The CIA was planning the extrajudicial assault on an embassy, the abduction of a foreign national, and his secret rendition to the U.S. with the alternative option of killing him. But apparently, they had contacted the British also about shooting out tires somewhere at an airport because they did not want to shoot on British soil.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
It's like a Tom Clancy novel, but sad and depressing.
Yeah. So in any event, the embassy attack never took place, despite the advanced planning. There was a discussion with the Brits, about turning the other cheek, and former senior counterintelligence official. But they're all liars also. But this was confirmed by a lot of people. This definitely happened. But it was already reported in 2020 by Max Blumenthal. We didn't really learn much here. But what we learned was that they also had looked into spying on Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras. And that journalism doesn't really matter to them. Right. If we were to be extradited, 175 years in prison, as we well know from Richard Medhurst, from Kevin Gostola, and from Randy Credico, and all the other outstanding journalists that have covered this case extensively over the years, especially over this past year.
For sure. Did Greg Palast do anything on it?
I have not seen Greg cover it. He was covering the Donziger stuff this week.
Donziger.
Yeah, and he was focused on the Georgia voter roll purges and nationwide voter roll purges.
Well, and before that, he was doing the Florida stuff with Al Gore, and that's what I remember him from. Right?
He's been around a long time. He's been doing this a long time.
He gets to wear the hat. He gets to wear the hat and not be made fun of for it.
He sure does. So, Pompeo's determination to conflate journalistic inquiry with espionage has particular relevance in Britain because the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, wants to pretty much do the same thing.
Yeah.
She proposes updating the Official Secrets Act so that journalists, whistleblowers, and leakers could face sentences in prison. Unbelievable. Donziger is a definite BS thing. That is just, again, he's got to serve 6 months contempt. I mean, the time served is nothing to them. I mean, and it was appointed by a corporate judge, for the first time in history, prosecuted by a Chevron appointed corporate judge. It's unreal. So, the true reason the scoop about the CIA's plot to kidnap or kill Assange has largely been ignored or downplayed is rather that he is unfairly shunned as a pariah by all the political persuasions, left, right, and center. Well, not all. There was a very loud example, but to give two examples here, U.S. government has gone on claiming that the disclosures put lives in danger, yet the Army admitted in court, right, that they failed to find a single person in Iraq and Afghanistan who had died because of the disclosures by WikiLeaks. As regards to the rape allegations in Sweden, many feel that these alone should deny him the claim, yet the Swedish prosecutor only carried out a preliminary investigation and no charges were brought. He's a classic victim of cancel culture, so demonized that he can no longer get a hearing, even when government plots to kidnap or murder him. It's unreal. Like, Patrick Cockburn Counterpunch. Great publication. Oh, that... Interesting. Used to have a lot more Counterpunch, but the St. Clairs have been doing a lot, leaning a lot more towards squad defending, TYT type of, not the type of reporting that we're looking for, and apologists. And they've been around a long time. They've been in this game for a very long time, a lot longer than I have, I can tell you right now, but they've been disappointing, and this is from somebody that used to really enjoy their stuff. We finally get to Caitlin's corner, so this means that we're at our last story of the night, and then we're going to get to boats crashing into other boats for Reef. This is really
boats crashing into other boats.
This is really the story that really gets me angrier than most.
Yeah, this one's bad. This one pissed me off when I heard about it too.
Barack Obama's on the board of Netflix. And Netflix decides 3 days before, on October 24th, before his court date, to release a smear piece, a smear movie about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Nothing suspicious there. Yeah, we're going to definitely crash those boats into trolls.
Yeah.
I hope that's prop server.
I hope.
Netflix will begin streaming a brazen hatchet job on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks for its American subscribers on October 24th, just 3 days prior to a significant court date in Assange's fight against extradition from the UK to the United States on October 27th.
Right.
Gross. We Steal Secrets is the name of it, except that they don't steal secrets. They are provided leaks. They are an outlet that provides a receptacle for people to anonymously post leaks and expose crimes to which they have never had to once print a retraction.
Yeah.
Jonathan Cook had it nailed. Oh, of course, it's Alex Gibney. Propagandist extraordinaire. So it was so egregious in its spin that not only did WikiLeaks supporters like World Socialist Website and Jonathan Cook pan it as a smear at the time, but WikiLeaks itself went to the trouble of publishing a line-by-line refutation of the mountains of propaganda distortion heaped on the narrative by filmmaker Alex Gibney. Gross.
Yeah.
I'd say 14.
This
Eric.
also reminds me of the like the Netflix thing with Musk, right? Where they're sending, pretty normal folks into space, right? It's just showing how tied Netflix is into, propaganda now and all that stuff. So it's super fun.
I love how they're quoting Jonathan Cook because he's fantastic.
Everybody, please subscribe and support to Jonathan K. Cook or Jonathan C. Cook. This would not be the first time Netflix has helped circulate the narratives. And of course, we know that Caitlin is always focused on narratives that advance the interests of U.S. empire, second or the third, having already run blatantly propagandistic documentaries, quote unquote, advancing imperial interests in nations like Ukraine, Russia, Egypt, multiple ones about Syria, right? And of course, Netflix also has signed a deal with the Obamas and the British royals. Nothing suspicious there.
No, everything's perfectly fine.
So they're not exactly looking out for the little guy, which from a company worth an estimated $229 billion should come as no surprise.
Billion.
Oh, and that's growing like crazy. $200 billion. Yes, Alex Gibney is a documentary filmmaker.
What was the last thing he did?
Yeah, you can look that up. Still such an open facilitation of the world's most powerful government in its campaign to imprison a journalist for inconvenient journalistic activity is a special kind of reprehensible. If there is a healthy humanity in the future, it will look back on the worldwide smear campaign against Assange and WikiLeaks with horror. I love her. So eloquent, so wonderful. Free Julian Assange. Get that man out of prison. He's there. He's being persecuted. We'll say that every week, hopefully. If I forget, I don't ever really want to forget. But also wanted to mention tonight that there was a live stream that Randy Credico did on his channel that Max Blumenthal. What's that?
Gibney did Going Clear.
Oh, about okay, the smartest guys in the room.
Scientology and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are decent.
Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. This one really, I don't know. We'll see, but clearly it's a propagandizing smear piece.
Sounds like.
And it's the timing of its release date is especially curious because it's 3 days prior to. They're trying to drum up U.S. sentiment against him and say, "Oh, that was really a bad guy," and they should be extraditing him. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Could not be more false. And they're not even exposing the persecution and the depths to which the U.S. government went to try to get this guy. And that alone should be grounds for his release.
If they extradite him to my house, though, he can sleep on the couch. You know?
Right?
Yeah.
So, Caitlin's amazing. Please support Caitlin. Here's the QR code. If you can. Yeah, she even wrote, let's argue about bisexual Superman. Great one. Again, I wanted to call attention to the fact that there was a live stream tonight on Randy Credico's channel, which is Live on the Fly with Randy Credico. It was a live stream of a night of comedy for Assange. Naomi Caravani and Lee Camp from Redacted Tonight were there. And Max Blumenthal was there. Max did an incredible set. Honestly, like he's just
so the court
getting great.
Was the court thing today, or is that
no? The court thing is on the 27th.
Okay,
and this is set for release on the 24th.
Gotcha.
It's an ode and a tribute to one of the guys I look up to, and Richie Medhurst, man. He killed it with this one. And this is an exclusive.
Dick Medhurst.
All right, yeah, Big Dick Medhurst, as Pasta likes to call him. But classified documents invalidate the U.S.'s appeal against Assange, talking about David Mendoza. And who is David Mendoza? Well, he goes into an entire story, and he apparently interviewed David Mendoza. This is available at Richard's Substack at richardmedhurst.substack.com. Okay,
We'll
so
put it in
who
the
is
chat
David
when we're done with the
Mendoza?
article.
Yeah, we'll drop that in chat.
Yep.
Sure, for everyone to go and give him a follow, a subscribe there. This is a pretty amazing piece. This was at the end of last week, but that David Mendoza Herarte was extradited from Spain to the U.S. on condition that he be allowed to serve his sentence in Spain. Okay, but then classified documents revealed the diplomatic assurances given and how they violated those. Okay, and then he spent 6 years in the U.S. trying to return to Spain. And court documents show how they denied his transfer application multiple times, and that while in prison, he sued the U.S. and Spain for failing to uphold the conditions of his extradition and for violating his human rights, and that his case was recently even taken up by the United Nations. Pretty wild story.
Gotcha. Yep.
Right? And that his case was raised last month in the English High Court, okay, where the U.S. is attempting to extradite Julian Assange to the U.S. Free Julian Assange. We should be dropping that case. And this is every reason why we should be, another reason why we should be dropping the case. Is because that we offered a similar diplomatic assurance that Assange could serve a sentence in Australia once he serves trial over here, but that they can change venue, they can move things around, they can drag their feet, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff to him to keep him here, even if they assure that he might be able to serve at some point and be in prison in Australia if he's found guilty, which he shouldn't be at all. But anyway, James Lewis, the head U.S. prosecutor, QC James Lewis, said that these assurances are bulletproof, except that Richard Medhurst has shown this to be untrue with court documents, diplomatic assurances that directly contradict his statement. So this is great work by Richard to blow the lid off this again, and just further reason. So again, a couple of highlights from David Mendoza after he spoke to him. Okay, he was born and raised in the U.S. His mother was from Spain. He'd go there every summer, and he described it as his second home. And he's both an American and Spanish national. He was wanted by the U.S. for drug trafficking in the early 2000s. I'm reading from the rest of the article here that he used helicopters. It's similar to like Blow to transport marijuana, currently commonly known as BC bud. I don't know. You might be a little young for that. I definitely had some BC bud.
I remember.
BC bud across the border into Seattle. It certainly made its way all the way across the country to New York. BC kind definitely made its way around. And today, of course, marijuana is legal in Seattle. So he worked in building property development, made good money. He said he only did this on the side to help subsidize some of his building projects, right? The first thing that happened was they tried to seize all of his U.S. property. And again, this is a really, really long article, and Richard gets exclusive paperwork, signed documents, FOIA requests, stuff from the Spanish National Court rulings, exclusive stuff. This is great work from Richard. I almost wanted to share the article that, but Mendoza said that if he hadn't handed over the building, that they wouldn't oppose his transfer request. So he has to put it in writing. He was told no, right? And essentially they wanted to get his stuff back. And at this point, they'd already seized 14 million of his assets and properties, even though most of it had no relation to narcotics. He said only 2 million was spent on that. And then he was also then sentenced to 14 years in prison. But instead of being sent to Spain, he was told to apply for a treaty transfer. And he applied, and the U.S. said no. Wait, what? It was done in a treaty already. Okay, and he applied 3 times for a treaty transfer. This is a crazy story, right? And this is what they're probably going to try to do if they ever get Assange to the U.S. shores. And this is what the case that Richard is making here, and that he's documenting. It's pretty remarkable, okay, that The U.S. continues to deny this guy to leave. And he said, that's when I realized I'm in the wrong court. I'm going to get nothing here. So he sued Spain instead. And it actually worked. So he won both of his lawsuits. And then it was about Spain pressuring the United States and having somebody high enough in Spain exerting enough pressure. Okay, they were ordered to hand over diplomatic communications with the U.S., which had previously refused to give Mendoza. They revealed that Spain had only asked the Americans to send Mendoza back 2 times, which was disappointing. In total, he spent 6 years and 9 months in the U.S. prison system, each day in violation of this U.S.-Spain extradition treaty that had been signed and the conditions imposed by the Spanish National Court. I mean, it's beyond an injustice. So once he was in Spain, he didn't get out until 2019. All right. Now, the thing is that the whole idea of why he was going to serve in Spain to begin with is because he could, the Spanish prison system allows you to spend time with your family. It allows for conjugal visits. Yeah, he had a newborn at the time. He had an autistic child. And
also some of the best rolling papers in the world, but
he lost that, of course, over time. And he said, like, his kids call him David now. They didn't even call him Dad. And it's really sad. So it says that, yeah, this case is incredible on its own merits. Nevertheless, it must be examined in the context of Assange's extradition, and that when James Lewis told High Court judges that the United States have never broken diplomatic assurance ever, that this is simply untrue. So Mendoza's experience shows that for Assange, any diplomatic assurances or agreements must be written in explicit language and signed by all parties, including him, so that in the eventuality of noncompliance, he may be afforded the opportunity to contest this in court, despite his status as a non-signatory of the U.S.-UK extradition treaty. That's one of the things that the U.S. courts kept saying was, well, if you didn't sign the treaty, then you have no standing and you have no claim to it. So you can't claim, make anybody enforce it, even if it includes your story, which is crazy. But it offers the court extraordinary insight into the inner workings of American diplomacy, legal proceedings, and extradition to the U.S. It is a serious warning which High Court justices should heed, and I'm hoping they do, who at their discretion have the power to prevent gross miscarriages of justice, which gravely imperil the respondent before they arise. And Mendoza says that he's a nobody, and if they're capable of doing this to him, imagine what they can do to Julian.
Yeah.
Again,
so
what's a tremendous article.
What's been happening? Do you know what's been happening in the trial recently? Right?
Well,
like what's going on there?
They had a hearing back at the end of October that was 2 or 3 days long. It was 2 days long, and that was the appeal. And we are now waiting for the appeal result from the High Court in the UK.
Gotcha.
And in the meantime, he continues to rot in Belmarsh and be given inadequate blankets. And
is it still over the allegation of sexual assault from him, or is it?
No, this is over the Iraq war log specifically.
Okay.
Still.
Okay.
This is not
so
about 2016
claim, or
this is using the Espionage Act for a journalist. Daniel Ellsberg had testified originally on his behalf in this extradition trial that had happened last September, which the judge Baritzer had ruled back in January that the U.S. prison system was inhumane, which we all thought that meant that he was going to be released, but that the U.S. had the right to appeal, and the Biden administration did announce that they were going to appeal. Merrick Garland is pursuing that. Merrick Garland should be dropping these charges because of all the things that have come out this year, the persecution that happened, the Isikoff article about what happened in Spanish with the Spanish embassy, and UC Global, which we already knew about 2020 thanks to Max Blumenthal, and that David Morales case. There is the Ziggy Thordarson revelations that he actually lied under oath to get a plea deal. There are so many different things that reasons why he should be set free at this point. Enough is enough, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
So by all means, Richard, great article. Thank you, my brother.
Well, you better get hip to indie left, indieleft.news.
And when you go to talk about it, you go to the best, and that's Glenn. And
Glenn.
Press freedom groups have warned that his prosecution is a grave threat. The Biden DOJ ignored them, and today won a major victory toward permanently silencing the pioneering transparency activist.
He killed on Jimmy today.
Did he?
So
yeah, we missed that. Got to get caught up with that. Yeah. And he also did an audio reading of this article, so encourage you to check that out on.
Yeah, but what if I want Caitlin Johnstone's husband to read it?
Tim's the best. This is a really long article. Like, I don't know about this dude. He's just so smooth about it. He can be
he's
the
recapping all of it, right? And
again, because of the acts that of Assange, because of the acts of Assange that serve as the basis of the U.S. indictment are acts in which investigative journalists routinely engage with their sources, press freedom, and civil liberty groups throughout the West vehemently condemn the Assange indictment as one of the gravest threats to press freedoms in years. In February, following Assange's victory in court, a coalition of civil liberties and human rights groups urged the Biden administration to drop the efforts to extradite him, as the New York Times put it. And this coalition, okay, again, Glenn killed with this. But what Glenn has pivoted to now, and I think, Democrats like the new Biden team are no fan of Assange, whose publication in 2016 of the Democratic email stolen by Russia aided Trump's narrow victory over Hillary Clinton. Or at least that's what the New York Times said. That's Russiagating stuff. Okay. But there's no direct tie between that other than the email that he sent to Don Jr. But it's very up in the air about that whole thing.
Well, I mean, the Don Jr. thing was just like, hey, do
I
you
read
have
the Mueller
info?
report.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Right.
Like, yeah.
But here you go. How they cheated in order to help Clinton stave off a surprisingly robust challenge from Senator Sanders in 2016.
Yep.
And there's our old friend.
I like how you're using her own language. I
nice.
appreciate the effort.
That's not very nice. Sorry.
Ooh, it's a snake.
All right, even Donna Brazil said it.
Yeah.
Okay, going back over the Rebecca Vincent, who's director of
Seth Rich, that she wanted to keep those windows blinds closed.
All right. Freedom of the Press Foundation, where Glenn sits on the board, issued a statement. It's just over the last 15 years, Assange has broken more major stories and done more consequential journalism than all the corporate journalisms who hate him combined. Bold statement.
Has not had to
probably true.
Rescind anything. Yet.
Right, but he is not being imprisoned despite his pioneering journalism. He is being imprisoned precisely because of that.
Because of it. Yep.
Accumulated hostility toward him from employees of media corporations who hate him due to professional jealousy and the belief that he undermined the Democratic Party, and from the U.S. security state apparatus, which hates him for exposing its crimes and refusing to bow to its dictates, has created a climate where the Biden administration and their British servants feel perfectly comfortable imprisoning arguably the most consequential journalist of his generation, even as they continue to lecture the rest of the world about the importance of press freedoms and democratic values. Killing it, Glenn. Thank you for saying all the things. GlynnGreenwald.substack.com. Give him a follow. Throw him some cash if you can. He's doing all right.
Also,
but
shout out the Action for Assange crew for when they were doing the appeal, because watching them, Misty, Glory, Slow News Day, Andrew, right? Like they woke up at 5 a.m. Eastern, or even earlier, stayed up depending on where they were located.
Sleepy
right?
Josh stayed
and
up. It was 2 a.m. where Sleepy Josh was, and Steve. I know they were up late.
And
Misty, I don't know if she stayed up all night or she
watching
got a
them
little rest, but
watching them have to take that news. People who've been doing this for 2+ years, right? Like have to essentially be forced to see him rot more. Because of this was fucking brutal to watch, and Stella coming out put almost everyone in tears. It was fucking the worst.
And now we find out that he had a stroke.
Yeah, that he had a stroke. But yeah, go watch that stream if you can find it. I think it was on MCSE Network and stuff like that, because they did lay out a amazing recap and
but that was
their thoughts on moving forward and so where they are now in the trial and stuff like that.
Sending love to all our Assange supporting family for sure. It's been hard. Richard Medhurst and Kevin Gostola, I wanted to shout those two out specifically.
Yeah.
They're doing yeoman's work.
Yeah. And just, keep an FYI how many people didn't tweet things about that yesterday. I think that says a lot more, that they didn't cover that story yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And why?
Well, you better get hip to indie left. Indie left. Indie left. News.
We're going to talk about what's been happening with Julian Assange. I got shocked last Friday night while we were doing the show and seeing that they had announced he had suffered a stroke, on October 27th during the High Court hearing.
Right.
And this is a legal question that Joe Loria for Consortium News asks, which is a completely valid question about whether they knew. If they knew, would it have made a difference? Why it took so long for them to make any kind of an announcement about this is still something that I have. It's just I struggle with this because it's just they're torturing this guy, and we all know it, and we see what they're doing, and free this man, get this man out of jail. He's a publisher. Whoa, what just happened? I hit the wrong button. Whoa. Okay.
Whoa, button masher.
Hey now. Okay.
Well, I know I put a tweet out recently about, look, the dude's fucking put out truth the last fucking, every time. Hasn't had to rescind shit over and over. So
when did the High Court know? Yeah, here. It's not clear when the High Court judges learned of his deterioration. Again, would it have mattered? Burnett's remark was on the High Court in the Assange case. Okay. Also, when the court overturned Lori Love's extradition, and that was one of the cases that we were hoping. So the court ruled against extraditing Love and for extraditing Assange. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. We are all Assange, and that's the problem. And again, here is the Burnett ruling overturning that said. Jimmy Lewis, somebody said James Lewis QC, argued ironically on the day of the stroke that the Love case was not precedent for Assange because Love had suffered from physical ailments where Assange had not, and now suffering from a stroke that also is no longer the case or valid. So at that point, Burnett interrupted QC Fitzgerald from the bench. It's a completely different case, according to SBS Mary Kostakidis, who viewed the appeal hearing via video link. Burnett said Love was different because he had physical ailment, namely eczema. This is, yeah. Free Julian Assange. And, again, I want to hear his voice. I want to hear it from him. I want to hear what he sounds like. I want, the world needs to hear directly from him. Yep. And hopefully one day we'll get to see that. Another story and another angle about the Assange story that I don't think a lot of people caught was that there actually has been movement in the Australian government. So you've got now somebody somewhat high up, at least, whether it's a shadow or a misdirection or something where he's running for something and it's politicizing it in order to win some points somewhere. But this has got to be looked at some kind of a positive sign that Australia's deputy prime minister has come to the defense of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, calling on the UK not to extradite him. Barnaby Joyce, who's at least brave enough to stand up to everyone in his government to know that what he's going to say is going to be unpopular in the Five Eyes of the world.
Yep. Why not Six Eyes?
Well, because we don't want a sixth eye. Believe me, Five Eyes is enough to
Five Eyes is enough.
Five Eyes is enough. Okay, and that is the treaty.
You probably got four-eyed.
Well, I've been called Four Eyes plenty, but this is the unilateral spying agreement that we have among all the major English-speaking countries. But so again, this is from the Independent. As an individual, whether you like him or despise him, it is beyond him, given his circumstances, to protect his rights by himself. So we must hope for the British courts to do so, God willing, which we know they're not going to do, and we will judge its society accordingly. And that means fuck all to the people, the prosecutors, and to and to the judges for sure, because we now know that one of the judges
I would not like him. He's that asshole.
Yeah. So to look at it clearly, you must leave your uninformed preconceptions at the door of this high color sideshow. You must also set aside the grave issues. Right. I mean, and he spent the last 2 years in Belmarsh.
Which is them just trying to fucking prep everyone in that sentence.
Right. And Stella, over the weekend, accused UK authorities of playing the role of executioner after Mr. Assange suffered a mini stroke in prison, and that's what they're announcing it as. And again, it was Stella that made that announcement. I didn't hear it confirmed by any prison doctors or any prison officials or anyone else on his team. Not again. It's again not that there's any doubt about it or anything, but just wow. And then, of course, Chris Hedges, and I know this was covered by a few people in Sheer Post, and let me blow this up so that people can read it a little bit better. Okay. And I just wanted to go to the very first paragraph, which is so powerful, where he actually says, "Let us name Assange's executioners." And I believe he did this in the streets also. And
on the streets,
so powerful, and I love this man so much. Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, Scott Morrison, Theresa May, Lenin Moreno, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Mike Pompeo, Hillary Clinton, Lord Chief Justice Ian Burnett, and Justice Timothy Victor Holroyd. Crown prosecutors James Lewis, Claire Dobbin, and Joel Smith, District Judge Vanessa Baritzer, Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia Gordon Kromberg, William Burns, the Director of the CIA, Ken McCallum, the Director of the UK Security Service, or MI5. But also, let's not leave out Merrick Garland, Attorney General of the United States, that is continuing to pursue this as well.
Yep. And all the congressional assholes who will say nothing.
Yeah. This is, again, Chris Hedges.
When did he write this? Was this before or after?
This was written on December 13th. So this was after we knew that he had suffered. Yeah, again, who suffered a stroke during court proceedings. And I know he had done a stream with Richard Wolff, I believe, just beforehand. So what they recorded was before he had that knowledge. He committed empire's greatest sin. He exposed it as a criminal enterprise. He documented its law. Again, I can't do justice to Chris Hedges.
Yeah.
All I can say is go read this article. It's lengthy and it's worth reading. And he's just a friggin' treasure.
Pulitzer Prize winning. Yeah.
He's just a friggin' treasure, and I adore this man. And maybe one of these days we'll actually get a chance to.
Tremendous personal cost warned us. He gave us the truth. The ruling caste is crucifying him for this truth. With his crucifixion, the dim lights of our democracy go dark. Hopefully, he comes back after 3 days. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's all of us. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to Low Key. Okay, for the Watchdog podcast on Mint Press News. Again, this is the kind of coverage that we should be getting from corporate media about Assange, where you've got different outlets covering different angles, and this is about specifically how the corporate media has manufactured contempt in general public sentiment, at least in the United States and globally. I, again, recommend everyone listen to this 48-minute podcast from Low Key, okay, who recounts. He's got two individuals who've been closely monitoring, Pablo Navarrete and John McAvoy, and you can read their credentials here. Founder of Alborada magazine, an outlet concentrating on Latin American politics. John's an investigative journalist, right? Thank you, sir. Okay, and then in November, John and Pablo were publishing a lot of mistakes about the Guardian and Assange, which can be read on Mint Press as well. So they're being interviewed now about that research by Low Key for his podcast. Okay, they recount that it's now known that UC Global, of course, spied on Julian. They even scavenged the embassy's garbage, stealing his kids' diapers to verify the DNA. We know that happened. Again, we are all Assange.
When you have security, like the president has to guard his poop. There has to be a guy that goes in and.
Unreal. Yeah, Luke Harding published a viral story that claimed that Assange had secretly met with Paul Manafort, which was told to be a lie. It found out to be a complete fabrication, and I believe somebody's going to prison for that. Gaping holes in the accusation, even though, and there was, not the least of that, there was no record of him ever visiting the embassy. Right. Police reporters, activists, intelligence agents were outside 24 hours a day, yet he was reportedly able to enter without anyone noticing. Come on. So, again, listen to this. Low Key does a great job. And I know that, shout out to Steve from Slow News Day. We were talking earlier this week, and I know he was cracking up on his stream talking about the possibility of Donald Trump doing a podcast with Low Key about Palestine. Because the evangelicals were turning on him, and seeing this just made me, seeing Loki's name just brought that back to mind. And shout out to Steve. Say hi to Steve, and give Slow News Day a follow. We retweet and amplify all of their stuff. The only other thing, and Warren, this is all going to be one segment, just a long Assange segment. And the other thing we can talk about is the other angle from our INN brother, the dissident, revisiting the Russian hacking claim and debunking the smears against Assange, which they've been doing tremendous work. I sound like Trump now. It's tremendous work. It's bigly, tremendous. Hugely tremendous.
Big. It's so big.
It's so huge. Okay. Huge. Mueller's timeline not lining up, and Mueller's sketchy source, and forensics showing that his source couldn't have been a hack, okay? And then, of course, the Ziggy Thordarson thing showing that he didn't do a hack and that it was completely a lie. Okay?
You know what's funny to me? On Reddit, whenever people put text posts, they always have a too long didn't read section at the bottom. I want one of those for like every news article. I just want to be able to scroll down.
Yep.
Too long, didn't read.
Yeah.
Well, you better get hip to indie left. Indie left. Indie left.news.
A tiger.
Thank you, Judd. He's a tiger. Toy like a toiger.
A toy tiger? I knew you were fucking gonna do
Toy
that
like a
one.
toiger. You knew I had to go to Austin Powers and.
Yeah.
All right. So I mentioned earlier we're going to go through Richard Medhurst. So this happened on Monday, and since we didn't do a show since Sunday, I did want to give it mention. It was covered pretty heavily on the left, of course, because we are such supporters of freeing Julian Assange and of keeping this case alive and talking about what's happening in the case, making sure people are educated, and start to question and apply pressure to the government to drop the case. And that's what we have to continue to do. And the only way to do that is if you keep talking about it. If we don't keep talking about it, they're just going to continue to do what they're going to do anyway. Now, they may do that anyway, but they're certainly not going to do that without me saying something. So, my brother Richard Medhurst, who's the best, okay? UK High Court has permitted Julian Assange to submit an appeal to the Supreme Court after the appellate court okayed his extradition to the U.S. in December. So, what that means is that he now... It doesn't mean that they're going to hear the case. It means that he now has the permission to appeal and to appeal to the Supreme Court. Now, they can now decide whether they're going to take the case or not. And what he says here is that they're likely going to take the case. But we don't know. And we won't know for a couple of weeks. So the decision was delivered this morning at the Royal Courts of Justice in London by Ian Burnett and Timothy Holyroyd, the same judges who overturned the earlier district court judge's decision not to extradite him to the United States back in December. Okay, I know that there was a problem with the live feed, and everybody was given a link only minutes before they announced it, and by the time they were all able to dial in, the announcement had already been completed. Okay. Again, recapping that the Australian journalist and WikiLeaks founder faces up to 175 years in prison for publishing classified documents which reveal U.S. war crimes in Iraq, Afghanistan, and more. He's asked the High Court judges to certify 3 points of law of general public importance in order to appeal to the Supreme Court. And the High Court refused to Assange to leave to appeal, which is not unusual. However, it did at least certify 1 point of law, clearing the way for him to ask the Supreme Court to hear his case. Again, so good from Rich. Thank you. High Court certified just 1 point of law regarding whether it was correct for the appeals court to receive assurances from the requesting state which hadn't been provided before during the extradition hearing. And that's what the case, this is the actual document of the case. The pronouncement reads, number 2, the point of law certified is, in what circumstances can an appellate court receive assurances from a requesting state which were not before the court of first instance in extradition proceedings? Lots of legal speak.
Yep.
It is on this basis that Assange can make an application to the Supreme Court within the next 14 days to hear his appeal. Of course, they're going to do that. It is then up to the Supreme Court to decide whether it will even hear it, and it can take months, however long they want to do this. And that was one of the things I talked about with Misty when we did Action for Assange on Tuesday night. We were talking about this document that she brought up where Julian, back in 2012, laid out what they were going to do to him and how they were going to basically drag him out in legal battles for the next 25 years and shuffle him around the board, which is pretty much exactly what's happening. And it's a disgrace. It's heartbreaking. We want to see him freed. We will do whatever we can to continue to keep that awareness alive and encourage everybody to talk about this case with everybody they know. That's what we do. So
these people.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. So the U.S. cries about war crimes while imprisoning a journalist for exposing its war crimes. Free Julian Assange. Now. Oh, man. So, of course, we had the extradition hearing this week, or at least the ruling or the sending of the extradition, announcing that he will be extradited on April 20th. That was sent to, and I'm sure Caitlin will get to it, Priti Patel, who is the Homeland Secretary over there. She has until May 18th to block it. Everybody's, of course, going to write and send her emails. Misty has a link somewhere on, maybe even be pinned to her Twitter, on where you can call or send her email and flood her office with requests to free this man and to deny the extradition. No extradition. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, so, and I won't do Tim's job. Again, it's only a 3.5 minute thing, so it's a short one. In what his lawyers have described as a brief but significant moment in this case, a British magistrate's court has signed off on Julian Assange's extradition to the United States, bringing the WikiLeaks founder one step closer to a U.S. trial under the Espionage Act, which threatens press freedoms worldwide. The extradition case now goes to UK Home Secretary Priti Patel for approval, which will likely be forthcoming as she is a reliably loyal Empire manager. After that point, his legal team will be able to launch an appeal. This is happening at the same time, of course, that the United States and UK are loudly demanding accountability for alleged war crimes by the Russian military in Ukraine, which is interesting because attempting to bring accountability for war crimes is precisely why Julian Assange is in prison in the first place.
Yep.
Biden says of Putin that he's a war criminal following the quote unquote false flag operation in Bucha. Definitely there are questions as to the origins and what happened. It is a massacre. It is a tragedy. There is no denying what happened and that people died. How it happened and who created it and exactly the events that transpired to cause it are certainly in question. And I'm not going to read the narrative manager of the day, the Associated Press, because they're only going to provide you exactly what the corporate spin is going to be. However, WikiLeaks will remind you that 12 years ago on April 20th, Julian Assange published Collateral Murder. That must have been on April 9th. Detailing the gunning down of civilians. April 5th. Children and 2 Reuters journalists. And again, we covered that in our last episode. Okay, and that's all I'd like to say here today, really. That is that this discrepancy is very interesting. I mean, can we take a moment to deeply appreciate the irony of this? Because it's so obscene and outrageous that it's actually hard to take in unless you really let it absorb. The most powerful government in the world, which serves as the hub of the most powerful empire that's ever existed, is working to extradite a journalist for exposing its war crimes while simultaneously rending its garments over other war crime allegations against another government. I mean, damn.
Caitlin calls it like she sees it.
Oh, I fucking love her. You would think a power structure that had recently been caught red-handed committing war crimes and is currently in the process of imprisoning a journalist for exposing those war crimes would at least have the sense not to yell loudly about war crimes for a little while. But this is how confident the empire is in its ability to control the narrative. Really take it in, really digest it, because the more you think about it, the freakier it gets. Not only is the empire persecuting a journalist for exposing its war crimes while at the same time demanding that others be held accountable for war crimes, it's also attacking that free press for reporting the truth about the powerful while at the same time engaging in a massive propaganda operation which holds that it is involved in Ukraine to protect its freedom and democracy. I mean, that alone, I mean, that's a narrative propaganda on its own. Okay, let alone the narratives about COVID and inflation and inequality and Medicare for all and all the other narratives that they've been controlling. Okay?
Yep.
I mean, the gall, the absolute temerity, the balls on this empire, man. I love her. Gave Caitlin support. Okay, she said it before. Say Assange exposed many ugly realities about the powerful in his work with WikiLeaks, but everything that he's managed to expose thereafter simply by forcing them to prosecute him far surpasses the revelations in those publications. If the highest form of journalism is exposing the darkest secrets of the most powerful people in the world, then Julian Assange is the highest form of journalist. Yep. I love that woman. She's amazing. And her last article was, please use all of my material free of charge as often as you want. Cite me, don't cite me, I don't care. And I said, why the hell would I ever do that when you're as amazing as you are? I'm going to cite you, and I'm going to tell everybody to read your stuff all day, every day. Love you to death, Caitlin. Thank you. You're the best. Free Julian Assange. This is insane. Hi, everybody. It's Indy, and hopefully you can hear me and nothing else. That was really cool. And again, I thank you for hanging out. I did want to, yay, I'm live. Aha, I fooled everybody. Yeah, it's a clip show, but I'm actually here. Reef did get the night off. He wasn't feeling so great, so we gave Reef the night off, and he decided to turn in a little early, so that's awesome. So feel better, Reef. This is How Do We Miss That? Sort of live, episode 39, Free Julian Assange. Let's get this man free. Do not extradite him. Merrick Garland, of course you're not listening, but free him. You're persecuting him, and this is nonsense, so stop doing that shit. Again, just wanted us to thank everyone for coming tonight. Let's go to iCloud and get my notes up, and just thank some of the patrons. We actually got a few new patrons last week, so that was really cool. We hadn't gotten a few new ones in a while, so that was exciting to see. And we're growing. We hit our 1,000th YouTube subscribers, so I wanted to say thank you for 1,000 YouTube subs. Wanted to say thank you for helping INN reach 100 followers on Instagram. Oh my God, INN's got 100 followers on Instagram and already up to 120 some odd followers on Rockfin. So rockfin.com/INN, and you'll be able to sign up for Indie News Network. We're streaming live to both Indie News Network and Independent Left.News. Of course, Indie News Network is a family of 23 content creators, and we make all different kinds of stuff. Joe SDFU Shitlib was featured on Jimmy Dore yesterday. We've got Blue Moon Red Wine is about to start doing some new things, and she's getting a show help produced by some of the INN folks. Look out for a couple of amazing Tar Reed streams in the next couple of days. We have so much happening. Jesse Jet, what a fun show we did on Tuesday night with Jesse, and I've got to plug all this stuff because the people are just remarkable. But I did want to again shout out some of our new patrons. Of course, Anthony M, who's awesome, and I love Anthony, and I think that's our Mr. Banana friend that we've been friends for so long, and he's appreciate that support so much. And then we've got Krill Fingers, we've got Douglas G, and then Eric T. Red moved over from Ko-fi to Patreon. So now we've got 8 patrons, Richard M. and the other original Rich, and Nikki, of course, and Les Bones, who are here as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, Tara with Eva was incredible. I actually got to personally engineer and that live stream, and she brought me in to talk about live chats, and that's something new that I just started doing in the last couple of months, was engineering some streams, and I enjoy it tremendously. It's stressful for me. I feel like I'm getting better at it, but Reef is so much better, and I have trouble cutting between the single and watching the 2-box, and I sometimes I'm watching the thing when I should be really thinking about, and you've got 100 things going on in your head. Let me tell you, when you're running a live stream and you're producing one for somebody else, there's so many different things to focus on simultaneously. It's overwhelming at times. I'm just doing the best I can. And again, subscribe to all these amazing people at Indie News Network. Go to indienews.network, and you can find all of our channels, and all the people there and all their channels are linked in the members link tree as well. again, so I wanted to say thank you to all of our patrons. We also had quite a few donations on Rockfin, so thank you so much for that. Again, rockfin.com/INDLeftNews. That's where you can donate to me personally, or to Reef if you want to hook him up with some weed money. We certainly appreciate that. So this was my Father's Day present, was to Julian Assange, who, again, I don't want to take the spotlight off of the fact that he's about to be sent within the next 6 months, according to We Need Critical Thinking. And thank you so much for putting some of the links to some of the other streams and some of the other content that's been out there people can find about the latest with regard to the case and the extradition and the appeal that's happening. Richard Medhurst, of course, was featured tonight. We also featured Joe Loria from Consortium News, and Glenn Greenwald, and the wonderful Caitlin Johnstone, and the dissident from INN as well. There were so many amazing writers, and Kevin Gostola, and I don't want to leave out Mohammed El Mazi, who was on with Tara about a week and a half ago. And I just appreciate all these writers and journalists that are keeping this alive, because they understand what this means for all of us. Journalism is not a crime. Publishing is not a crime. And we need the freedom to be able to report on the crimes of governments without fear of persecution, the way that they're doing to this man. So that is How Do We Miss That, episode 39. Again, I really thank everybody for being here tonight. This week we've got a ton of stuff. INN News on Wednesday, Tara Show on Tuesday, Warren Show on Thursday. We'll see what happens with Reef on Friday. Also, check out, I did INN one-on-one with Rob Durden last Wednesday. I think we're going to try to do another one this week, where we just talked about platforms and some of the challenges of going online and streaming as an independent streamer, getting started, using different equipment. Are we using a phone? How do you cut and edit things? Are you streaming versus are you uploading videos to your channel? So many different elements and so many things to talk about. And then as far as platforms, what are you uploading to, and how many? And when, frequency. There's so many parts to this, on top of marketing and social media interaction and going as a guest on other people's shows. Then how do you have time to do all of this without a team behind you? So that's what we've been kind of tackling. We had an awesome talk about this last Wednesday, hoping to do it again and make it a regular type of show where I talk to all of the INN members and talk about some of the challenges that are out there for us as independent content creators, give them advice potentially, and then there's Substack and actual publishing and writing, and we're trying to do it all. We're trying to touch all of it, and we're trying to help everybody who's doing it all. And maybe if they can take a little bit away from one portion, they say, hey, those guys at INN, they really know their stuff, and let's check them out for some more stuff. That's all we can hope for. And again, I really appreciate everybody tuning in, checking this all out, and sharing with their friends, with everybody in the space, and the community that we've built. Mutual aid. Okay, please take care of each other, and donate wherever you can to independent content creators. Support independent media. We need it more than ever. And that's my message for tonight. This is Indy signing off. Have a great night, everybody. Love you all.